What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. Apparently, in the history of the US economy, there was a period of consecutive 129 months, which is more than 10 years, when the inflation remained stable high, above 3%. If you know, the target inflation of the US economy is 2%, so 3% according to them, even though it might not sound much, especially if you come from other countries, but well, apparently 3% in America is considered already to be a high inflation. It is obviously not the highest level it ever reached in the history of America, but, well, that's a consecutive months that was above 3%, and the lengthiest period continued for more than 129 months. So today, let's talk about the possibility of this happening, how many more other periods when the inflation stayed high for an extended period of time, and whether the possibility of this happening again in the future, whether we can witness it within our lifetimes. So long story short, yeah, according to this graph, the most recent time when the inflation above 3% stayed for an extensive period of time started approximately in 2021, and this happened basically for 39 months straight. The inflation was way above the target for more than 3 years. And historically, there were only 4 times in the last 100 years when the inflation stayed above this target also for an extensive period of time. So as you can see, this is not something that usually happens. The very first time in the very beginning of 20th century, in the 1920s, when also inflation reached one of its highest numbers in recorded history of 23.8%, this period of higher than usual inflation lasted for 59 months. The next period of high inflation, which concluded in the early 70s, lasted for 54 months. Then obviously the very longest period, which lasted from 1973 to 1983, these 129 months we spoke about in the beginning of this video, this was the longest period ever in recorded American history, when inflation was 3% or more. And then ultimately in the 90s, 55 more months were when the inflation was higher than it should be. Now I know that right now inflation is below 3%, but it is still far from the Fed's target of 2%. We also saw already Fed pivot happening when they started to already decrease the interest rates, and inflation, surprisingly to be honest, reacted almost immediately. At least some CPI or PCE, these particular ones that the Feds always try to either focus on the core PCE, next time they focus on CPI, next time they focus on core CPI just to make the convenient headlines, but nevertheless, the inflation did react to the Fed pivot very fast, and it started climbing just a little bit up once again, even though we're just in the beginning of Fed pivot. What I'm saying is that yes, maybe the streak of high inflation has been broken, but it did not last for a very long time. The inflation was also not far below 3%. So potentially if we do still count this small, extremely small gap when the inflation was below 3%, because there is a very well possibility that it might continue, we might experience the sixth period of increasingly high inflation, which will be way above the Fed's target. At the moment of recording this video, the probability of Feds reducing the rates by another 0.25% is pretty much 55-45%, in favor of a little bit more than the rate will happen. Though as you can see, the inflation is already started to go up, at least in some sectors of the economy, which allows me, at least personally, to assume that we might not see the Fed rate cut in the next month. Only time will tell, but in case they do decide to cut the rates, and in case they do continue to do it in the next year, starting as early as potentially even January 2025, though it is highly improbable, but we once again might see the part of the history of the economic history of the US when the inflation again climbs above 3% and stays there for an extensive period of time. Once again, the time will tell. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, please like this video, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, see you tomorrow.